There is an interesting paradox. Lying is extremely difficult and demanding, and there are almost always behavioral signs that can reveal the deception. Yet many people fail to detect lies. Because liars usually mix their deception with truth, or because people often rely on stereotypes and biases and don't know where to look for signs of deception. According to a recent study, lying comprises 7% of our communications. Although many lies aim to preserve feelings or maintain social harmony, there are instances where lying can severely harm reputations or even destroy a person's life altogether. Frequent liars become more adept at deception over time, making it challenging to identify them using devices like polygram or electroencephalography that monitor physiological and neuronal changes.
You have black hair?
Yes.
Whoops. The problem with all polygraph tests is false positives.
Innocent people can fail if they feel an increase in any emotion. Anger, fear, sexual arousal, not just guilt.
But there are some subtle cues and crafty behavioral methods that can be used to find out if someone is being dishonest. In this video, we draw inspiration from the lie detection methods utilized in the famous Lie to Me series to show you how to use microexpressions, body language, voice analysis, and behavioral cues to uncover deceptions. The origins of most of these methods trace back to our evolution, so they are not easy to fake, making them not only highly entertaining, but also incredibly valuable to learn. We will focus mainly on the areas that are supported by some form of scientific research. You can find a link to some of the papers we used in the description. There is a reason that facial and microexpressions are Dr. Lightman's favorite tool. Face is the most important and rich communicative area of the human body, with 43 muscles that shows our inner emotions and thoughts. Microexpressions, which are involuntary movements of face muscles that signal different emotions, are specifically studied for lie detection. Dr. Lightman usually uses these expressions to get a good read on the other person and find hidden emotional states that contradicted what they tried to show. So the rationale is straightforward. If, for example, you were assaulted, you must show signs of shame, fear, disgust, or sadness. Otherwise, the emotional profile does not match with the expected outcomes, which can indicate deception.
No, it doesn't explain the gestural slip.
Lake's also not exhibiting any of the emotions a rape victim typically displays when recounting her story.
No shame, no fear. We should be seeing a lot of activity in the forehead, but there isn't any.
Microexpressions are an extremely powerful tool, but some problems make their everyday usability challenging. One limitation is its utility for delusional individuals that actually believe what they say even if it's a lie, and psychopaths that emotionally react differently. The bigger problem is that microexpressions only last for less than half a second. Now the main question here is whether it's possible for someone to recognize these short-living emotional states, and the answer is, for the most part, yes. Some emotional states like sadness last for longer, while others like surprise and disgust are short-lived and harder to identify. Happiness and surprise can be recognized as fast as 10 milliseconds, sadness and disgust in about 70 milliseconds, while other emotions take longer. So if you actively pay attention to the strategic areas in the face, you have a pretty good chance of finding these microexpressions. Good news is you can get better at this task with practice. A 2012 study conducted at the Chinese Academy of Sciences showed that practice can help people recognize microexpressions faster. Beyond practice, an important factor is the distance from the face. That's why we see Dr. Lightman usually stays close to the subject, as it made him more likely to find out emotional clues. You don't have to creep out others by clinging to them and staring at them all the time. The most important moments for reading expressions is when information is presented to individuals. Eyes and mouth are the most important areas in facial reading. Try to focus on these areas when new information is presented to others and see if you can discern any changes. Asymmetrical emotional expressions, lip biting, excessive blinking, and swallowing acts are some of the best indicators of deception. Priming, which is the effect of the previous stimuli on the subsequent one without any awareness of the effect, is a phenomenon that works to your advantage. So, spotting a microexpression, even if you are unable to consciously perceive it, might give you an intuition about the concealed motives. This new insight can help you to avoid the situation or dig deeper using our next set of methods. Being on the verge of exposure is anxiety-inducing and prompts people to engage in different activities. These activities are driven evolutionary, and the famous example of them are displacement behaviors, which occur when an animal performs an act that is out of context and unrelated to their current state. Dr. Lightman usually starts by observing baseline activity of the subject and then continues by gauging the possible outcome and looking for changes in body language. This method is especially useful when the other person tries to limit his movements and refuses to respond directly to the questions. Averting eye contact, stepping backward, or arm crossing are classic signs of resistance. These defensive postures reflect an unconscious attempt to distance yourself in uncomfortable situations. Contradicting movements are another cool example of how a person might unintentionally give away information. Someone saying yes while shaking their head no, or nodding affirmatively while verbally denying something might indicate deception or internal conflict.
Miss Sando, do you believe Mr. Trio has changed?
Yes? Yes, I do.
Never forget that there is no definitive indicator of deception, and all of these signs are non-specific and should be confirmed by other verbal and non-verbal evidence. More importantly, the context often determines the significance and meaning of actions. For instance, arm crossing during a normal conversation is a self-hug and reassuring act and has nothing to do with deception. But if this response occurs following a specific question, it can indicate lying. Sometimes secrets are shared between individuals and you find yourself in the dark, unaware of what to do with the hidden knowledge. In those cases, the chances of someone giving away information increases. But the problem is finding the right place to look for info. See this scene for example.
Absolutely true. But truth is, I only want to talk to one of you. Just one of you. The one everyone's afraid to look at.
Before the last part, don't forget to support our channel by subscribing. We really appreciate it. Remember that being good at spotting lies has some potential drawbacks, like skepticism and trust issues, social isolation, burden of responsibilities, and of course ethical dilemmas.
Her husband's not going arrested.
Well, that's none of your business.
You saw that he lied to her, right? Does she really not see it?
Hey, it's none of your business.
This section is perhaps the most important one. As far as we know, we are the only species that use verbal communication and transmit complex ideas and emotions through language. Studies have shown that people speak in a higher pitch during deceptive speech, which probably reflects stress or uncertainty.
What are you doing this very second?
Dad,
You still need a lift later?
no, actually, I've got a big chem test on Friday. I'm gonna sleep over at Katie's house.
You sure about that?
Yeah,
All right, I love you.
love you too.
You heard that, right? Word repetition and her vocal pitch went up when she was talking about staying at Katie's.
Generally, lying is more cognitively demanding than telling the truth. As a result, the speech rate often decreases compared to the baseline. Long pre-processing and preparation for statements shows the narrator's uncertainty about the topic and an effort to conceal information. Of course, that mostly applies to spontaneous lying. Prepared lies, on the other hand, might manifest in a different way. In prepared lies, the rate can even increase and the latency of response decreases since one already knows what he or she wants to say.
Tell us about the fire.
Alarm went off at 3 a.m.
Tell us about the fire.
We got the call around 3 a.m.
Tell us about the fire.
Must have been about 3 in the morning.
Response time is under a second.
Now, if they're lying, they'd be longer, right?
People think you take longer to respond if you're lying, but that's just if the lie is spontaneous.
If a lie is prepared ahead of time, you're eager to get it over with.
Intimating uncertainty, like saying sort of, kind of, or reflecting responses, like when someone repeats the words used in the question to answer, could be another sign. Because sticking to the already available information is much easier than committing to the concept and generating new response. Most of the time, elements of guilt are involved in lying. In face of accusations, liars tend to avoid using self-referencing words and talk in third party, avoiding emotional investment and involvement. Also, they use profanity and cursive remarks more often than usual. For example, someone might say, "I didn't mean to be late, the stupid bus arrived late," instead of saying, "I came late because the bus had a delay." Another important clue that we take for granted are pauses. Not only pauses might mean that someone is concocting a lie, but the way that people respond to their own pauses is important. If the rate of speech and the emotional valence of the person stays the same after, it means that they were most likely trying to remember something, otherwise it can be a sign of deception. As we said before, lying is demanding. One of the consequences of this fact is that liars use simple explanations, but wrap them up in long, convoluted sentences. Like the one President Nixon used about the Watergate scandal incident when he said, "I can say categorically that no one in the White House staff, no one in this administration, presently employed, was involved in this very bizarre incident." Along the same lines, when individuals provide multiple reasons for something, it's usually in the hope that at least one of these explanations will be accepted, which is another indicator of deception.